Commander Sarah Chen pressed her face against the cold metal of the ventilation shaft. Her heart was beating so fast she worried the aliens below might hear it. She had been crawling through the air ducts of the Mars Research Station for 2 hours, following a signal that should not exist. The signal was encrypted. Not with human encryption, but with something far more advanced. Sarah was good with codes. It was why the Earth Defense Force had sent her to investigate strange activities on Mars. But this code was different. It was alien, and it was being sent between the peaceful species that humans had called friends for 200 years. Sarah had grown up learning about their alien neighbors. The Zilani were wise teachers who helped humans understand philosophy and peace. They were tall, thin beings with gray skin who only ate plants and spent their time thinking deep thoughts. The Korthak were friendly engineers who were not very smart, but worked hard with their 6 arms to help build human colonies. The Etherians were beautiful energy beings who were slowly dying out, and humans felt sorry for them. These were the aliens who had welcomed humanity into the Galactic Confederation. They had taught humans how to travel between stars and live on other worlds. They had shared their knowledge and become friends with the younger human species. But now, listening to their secret communications, Sarah heard something that made her blood run cold. "The humans are getting too curious again," came a voice she recognized as Zilani. But this voice was different from the gentle, wise tone she knew. This voice was sharp and calculating. "Phase 7 containment protocols are failing," replied another voice. This one was Korthak, but it spoke with perfect grammar and complex thoughts that the simple Korthak were supposed to be unable to form. "The specimens in Lab Complex Gamma are developing unexpected resistance to the neural dampeners," said a third voice. This was Etherian, but instead of the weak, fading whisper humans always heard, this voice was strong and powerful. Sarah's hands shook as she recorded everything. "Specimens? Neural dampeners? Lab Complex Gamma? Perhaps we should move to Phase 8, the Zilani voice continued. "Complete memory adjustment of the local population. We have done it before." "No," said the Etherian voice with authority. "The Council of Shepherds has forbidden direct mental manipulation since the incident on Europa. We must maintain the natural development illusion." "Then what do you suggest?" asked the Korthak voice. "The humans are starting to ask questions about our technology limitations. Yesterday, one of their engineers asked why our fusion reactors are less efficient than theirs. We had to make up another story about different physics understanding." Sarah felt sick. Technology limitations? The aliens had always said they were at roughly the same level as humans, just with different strengths. But this conversation suggested they were holding back their real abilities. "Increase the cultural distraction protocols," the Etherian voice commanded. "Release more entertainment media featuring humans as heroes. Give them more colony worlds to explore. Keep them focused outward, away from questioning what they see close to home." The voices faded as the speakers moved away. Sarah remained in the ventilation shaft for another hour, making sure they were gone. Her mind was spinning with questions and terrible possibilities. When she finally crawled out, she found herself in a corridor she had never seen before, despite having been stationed on Mars for 3 years. The walls were made of materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Doors opened without sound, revealing rooms filled with equipment that was far more advanced than anything humans possessed. In one room, she saw tanks filled with green liquid. Floating inside the tanks were human bodies. Sarah recognized some of the faces, colonists who had been reported missing over the past year. They had tubes connected to their heads, and strange symbols moved across screens nearby. Sarah took photos with her encrypted camera, her hands shaking. The missing colonists were not dead. They were being used for experiments. In another room, she found files. The alien writing was impossible to read, but there were human translations attached. The files contained detailed studies of human behavior, psychology, and biology. There were reports on creativity stimulation tests, aggression response mapping, and innovation catalyst experiments. One file made her sit down hard on the floor. It was titled, Project Shepherd, Managing the Human Disruption Factor. Inside were charts showing human influence on other galactic species. According to the data, every species that worked closely with humans had started showing increased innovation, independence, and what the file called dangerous creative thinking. The Zilani working with human philosophers had begun questioning their own ancient beliefs. Korthak engineers assigned to human colonies had invented new technologies that surpassed their traditional designs. Even the dying Etherians had discovered new forms of energy manipulation after studying human determination to help them. Sarah realized the truth was bigger than secret experiments. The entire galactic community had been lying to humanity from the beginning. They were not equal partners. They were not even friends. Humans were subjects in the largest experiment in galactic history. The file explained the Shepherd Protocol. Young species were to be guided and controlled until they reached acceptable parameters for full galactic membership. But humans had a problem. They made other species change and grow in unpredictable ways. This was considered dangerous to galactic stability. Sarah photographed everything she could find. As she prepared to leave, she heard footsteps in the corridor. She quickly hid behind a large piece of equipment that hummed with unknown energy. 3 figures entered the room. Sarah had to cover her mouth to stop from gasping. The first was a Zilani, but not like any she had ever seen. Instead of the thin, peaceful being she knew, this Zilani was tall and muscular. Its eyes glowed with intelligence and something that looked like hunger. Its movements were predatory and confident. The second figure was a Korthak, but this one moved with perfect coordination. All 6 arms worked together in complex patterns as it operated multiple control panels at once. Its face showed the kind of intelligence that humans associated with their greatest scientists and philosophers. The third figure was the biggest shock. The Etherian was not a fading energy being struggling to maintain physical form. It was a creature of pure power, its energy form crackling with colors that hurt to look at. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of ages. The human neural patterns are adapting faster than predicted, the Etherian said. Their brains are starting to resist our influence techniques. Perhaps that is because we underestimated them again, the Zilani replied. Our ancestors warned us about species like this, species that change everything they touch. The council grows impatient, the Korthak said. They want to know if we should begin the final containment phase. Not yet, the Etherian said. We need more data. The humans must not discover the true scope of the project. If they learn what we really are, if they understand how long we have been manipulating them, their reaction could destabilize the entire galactic order. The 3 aliens left, but their words echoed in Sarah's mind. She waited until she was sure they were gone, then carefully made her way back to the ventilation shaft. She had to get this information back to Earth. Humanity needed to know that their friends were actually their captors, and their captors were far more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. As she crawled through the dark shaft toward freedom, Sarah realized that this moment would change everything. The moment when humanity learned that the galaxy had been lying to them from the very beginning was going to be the moment when the galaxy's carefully maintained order would begin to fall, a part she just hoped humanity would survive what came next. The emergency meeting at Earth Defense Command was unlike anything Dr. James Okafor had ever attended. Military officials, scientists, and politicians filled the secure conference room. At the center of it all sat Commander Sarah Chen, looking like she had not slept in days. Show them the recordings, General Martinez said quietly. The room fell silent as the alien voices played through the speakers. James watched the faces around the table change from confusion to shock to anger. When the recording ended, nobody spoke for a long time. How long have you known about this? Asked President Elena Vasquez. 72 hours, Chen replied. I send encrypted messages to Earth as soon as I escape the facility. But this is bigger than one secret lab on Mars. James raised his hand. As the head of xenobiology research, he had worked with aliens for 15 years. I need to share something. 3 days ago, before we knew about Commander Chen's discovery, my team found something strange. He activated the holographic display. Images of alien brain scans filled the air above the table. These are brain scans of Korthak workers on Europa Colony, James explained. We were doing routine health checks. Look at these neural patterns. The scans showed brain activity that was far more complex than any Korthak had ever displayed. The patterns indicated intelligence levels that exceeded most human scientists. But that's impossible, said Dr. Williams from the Colonial Health Department. The Korthak barely understand basic mathematics. They need human supervisors for simple construction work. That's what we thought, James replied. So I decided to test them without telling anyone. I created puzzles that would challenge our best engineers. I gave them to Korthak workers, pretending they were simple building problems. The room waited as James pulled up video recordings. "Watch this," he said. The video showed a Korthak worker looking at a complex engineering puzzle. For a moment, the alien seemed confused, just like humans expected. But then something changed. Its 6 arms began moving with perfect coordination. In 10 minutes, it solved a problem that should have taken human engineers hours to complete. "Notice what happens next," James said. On the screen, the Korthak suddenly stopped. It looked around as if remembering where it was. Then it deliberately made its solution worse, adding mistakes that made it look like simple luck had helped it finish the task. "They're pretending to be stupid," President Vasquez said slowly. "All of them," James confirmed. "Every alien species we've tested shows signs of hiding their true abilities. The Zilani meditation sessions? I monitored their brain activity. They're not meditating. They're conducting complex mathematical calculations that our best computers would struggle with. And the Etherians?" asked General Martinez. James hesitated. "That's the most disturbing part. We always thought they were dying because their energy forms were weak. But I detected energy readings from the Etherian quarter that suggest they're more powerful than our fusion reactors. They could probably power entire cities by themselves." The weight of the revelation settled on the room. Humanity was surrounded by beings who could destroy them easily, but were pretending to be harmless neighbors. "There's more," Chen said. She activated another display showing the files she had photographed. "According to their records, this has been happening for over 200 years. Every first contact, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange was planned. The documents showed detailed plans for managing human development. There were charts tracking human technological progress and social changes. Every time humans made a breakthrough that was too fast, the aliens had ways to slow them down or redirect their attention. "They've been controlling us," said Dr. Williams. "But why?" "Because we're dangerous," Chen replied. "Not in the way we thought, but dangerous to their way of life. According to their files, species that work with humans start changing. They become more creative, more independent, more willing to question old ways." James nodded. "That explains something I noticed but never understood. Korthak, who work on human colonies, develop new engineering techniques. Zilani philosophers who debate with humans start questioning beliefs their people held for thousands of years. We thought it was natural cultural exchange. But to them, we're like a virus," President Vasquez said. "We make other species change, and they don't want change." The room grew quiet again as everyone processed the implications. Finally, Admiral Torres spoke up. "If they've been hiding their true strength for 2 centuries, what else don't we know? How powerful are they really?" Chen pulled up another file. "According to this, the Zilani have weapons that can destroy entire solar systems. The Korthak build machines that can manipulate space and time. The Etherians can exist in multiple dimensions at once. And they've been pretending to struggle with problems that human students could solve." General Martinez said with growing anger. "We have a bigger problem," Dr. Williams said. "If they've been studying us for 200 years, they know everything about us. Our weaknesses, our psychology, how we think and react." President Vasquez stood up. "We need to know more. Commander Chen, how many facilities like the one on Mars are there?" "Unknown, but the files mentioned similar operations on 12 human colonies. They call them observation points. Dr. Okafor, can your team develop ways to detect when aliens are hiding their abilities?" "We're already working on it," James replied. "But we need to be careful. If they realize we know, they might stop pretending and show us what they can really do." The president looked around the room. "We have 3 choices. We can pretend we don't know and try to learn more in secret. We can confront them and demand the truth. Or we can prepare for war." "War against beings who can destroy solar systems?" Admiral Torres asked. "That's suicide." "Maybe," the president said. "But living as lab rats is not acceptable either." Chen stood up. "There's something else. The files mentioned something called the Council of Shepherds. It's not just our 3 neighbor species. There are others, older and more powerful species that make the decisions about younger races like us." "How many others?" General Martinez asked. The files weren't clear, but it could be dozens, maybe hundreds, all of them working together to manage species like humanity. The room fell silent as the true scope of their situation became clear. Humanity was not just dealing with 3 species hiding their abilities. They were facing an entire galactic community that had been manipulating them for centuries. "We need more information," President Vasquez decided. "Commander Chen, You'll lead a secret investigation team. Find these other facilities. Learn everything you can about their true capabilities and their plans for us. Dr. Okafor, continue your research but be discreet. If they suspect we know, they might take direct action. Admiral Torres, begin quiet preparations. If this goes bad, we need to be ready. As the meeting ended and people began to file out, James stayed behind with Chen. Sarah, he said quietly, what do you think they'll do when they find out we know? Chen looked tired and worried. I don't know, James. But I think we're about to find out what happens when the most powerful beings in the galaxy stop pretending to be our friends. Outside the conference room windows, ships from 3 alien species could be seen in Earth's orbit, just like they had been for decades. But now those ships looked different. Now they looked like guards watching a prison. The moment when humanity learned the truth was the moment their real test began. Captain Lisa Park stared at the readings on her screen and felt her heart stop. Her exploration ship, the New Horizon, had been investigating strange energy signatures near the edge of human space when they found something that should not exist. Captain, her science officer called out, you need to see this. The main screen showed what looked like a small moon, but the readings told a different story. The object was artificial, covered in weapons that could destroy planets, and it was definitely Zilani construction. How many ships are docked there? Lisa asked. At least 500, came the reply. But Captain, these aren't like any Zilani ships we've ever seen. They're massive. Each one is bigger than our largest space stations. Lisa felt sick. For 3 weeks, Earth had been quietly investigating the alien deception that Commander Chen had discovered. They had found secret facilities on human colonies and evidence of manipulation going back centuries. But this was the first proof of the aliens' true military power. Record everything, she ordered. Full spectrum analysis. Command needs to see this. As the New Horizons sensors gathered data, Lisa thought about how different her world had become. 3 weeks ago, she had been proud to serve alongside alien allies. The Zilani had been teachers and philosophers. The Korthak had been helpful engineers. The Etherians had been tragic figures that humans wanted to protect. Now she knew the truth. The gentle Zilani were apex predators who had conquered dozens of star systems. The simple Korthak had technology that could bend reality. The dying Etherians were immortal beings of immense power. Captain, her communications officer said urgently, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. The message was short and encoded. All exploration vessels return immediately. Condition Black protocols in effect. Lisa knew what Condition Black meant. War was coming. Set course for Earth, maximum speed, she ordered. As they jumped to faster-than-light travel, Lisa wondered if they would make it home before everything fell apart. On Earth, the situation was getting worse by the hour. President Vasquez sat in the Emergency Command Center, surrounded by screens showing human colonies across the galaxy. Red warnings flashed on most of them. Report, she said to General Martinez. 17 colonies have detected unusual alien activity in the past week, the general replied. Military buildups, new installations appearing overnight, and increased surveillance of human populations. They know that we know, Admiral Torres concluded. Dr. James Okafor rushed into the room carrying a tablet. Madam President, we've confirmed something terrible. The missing colonists from the Mars facility weren't just test subjects. They were having their memories altered before being returned to the population. What kind of alterations? The President asked. Making them more compliant, less curious, less likely to question authority. According to our scans, nearly 30% of colonists on Mars show signs of neural modification. President Vasquez felt anger building inside her. They've been changing our people's minds. It gets worse, James continued. We found similar patterns on other colonies. They've been doing this for decades, maybe longer, selecting humans with leadership potential and altering their brains to make them passive. The President stood up. How many of our own people aren't really our people anymore? Before James could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Madam President, called the communications officer, we have incoming transmissions from all 3 alien species. They're requesting immediate conferences. All 3 at the same time? Admiral Torres asked. That's never happened before. Put them through, the President ordered. The main screen divided into 3 sections. In the first appeared a Zilani, but not the peaceful philosopher that humans were used to seeing. This Zilani wore armor that seemed to be made of living metal, and its eyes held the cold intelligence of a born killer. The second section showed a Korthak, but this one moved with the precise coordination of someone who had mastered both engineering and warfare. Its 6 arms held devices that hummed with barely contained energy. The third section revealed an Etherian in its true form. Instead of the weak, fading being humans had pitied, this creature blazed with power that made the air around it shimmer. "Greetings, President Vasquez," the Zelani said. Its voice carried authority that made everyone in the room want to submit. "I am War Leader Zethkar of the Zelani Dominion. I am Chief Builder Korvash of the Korthak Empire," said the 6-armed figure. "My people have shaped reality itself for 10,000 years. I am High Energy Velthara of the Etherian Collective," said the being of light and power. "We have existed since your star was born." President Vasquez forced herself to stand straight despite feeling very small. "I notice you're all using different titles than usual." "The time for deception is ending," Zethkar replied. "Your species has learned things that were meant to remain hidden. We must now speak truth." "You mean the truth about how you've been lying to us for 200 years?" the president asked. "We prefer to call it guidance," Korvash said. "Young species require careful management to prevent them from destroying themselves or others." "Management," Admiral Torres repeated angrily. "Is that what you call experimenting on our people and altering their minds?" Velthara's energy form pulsed brighter. "Every species goes through this process. It is necessary for galactic stability. Most never learn the truth because they accept guidance peacefully. But humans are different," Zethkar continued. "Wherever you go, you cause change. Species that interact with humans begin to question, to grow, to exceed their traditional limits. This is dangerous." President Vasquez felt a strange pride mixed with her fear. "So you're afraid of us?" "Not afraid," Korvash said. "Concerned. In our galaxy, order is maintained through careful balance. Each species has its role, its place, its limitations. Humans disrupt this balance. The Korthak working with your engineers have invented technologies we banned thousands of years ago," Velthara explained. "Zelani philosophers exposed to human ideas have begun questioning the authority structures that keep our society stable. Even our own kind have been affected," Zethkar admitted. "Etherians studying human determination have discovered new forms of existence we thought impossible." The president began to understand. "You're not just afraid of what we might do. You're afraid of what we make others do." "Precisely," all 3 aliens said at once. "So what happens now?" Admiral Torres asked. "You have 3 choices," Zethkar said. "First, you can accept deeper guidance. We will move your species to a protected system where you can develop without influencing others. Many humans will need to have their memories adjusted, but you will be safe. Second," Korvash continued, "you can accept junior membership in the galactic community. You will be allowed some independence, but under strict monitoring and with technological limitations." "And the third choice?" President Vasquez asked, though she already knew she wouldn't like the answer. Velthara's form pulsed ominously. "Containment. Your species will be prevented from leaving your current territory. Your colonies will be isolated. Your people will be managed more directly." "You mean imprisonment," the president said. "We mean survival," Zethkar replied. "These are the only options that allow humanity to continue existing." The room was quiet for a moment as the weight of the ultimatum settled on everyone. Finally, President Vasquez spoke. "You haven't mentioned a 4th option, which is?" Korvash asked. "Resistance." All 3 alien figures became very still. Velthara spoke carefully. "President Vasquez, you do not understand our capabilities. We have weapons that can destroy stars. We have technologies that can rewrite reality. We have existed for millennia and conquered species far more advanced than humanity." "Maybe," the president said, "but you've spent 200 years studying us and you're still afraid of what we might do. That tells me something important." "What does it tell you?" Zethkar asked. "That you're not as sure of victory as you pretend to be." The 3 aliens exchanged looks that somehow conveyed volumes of communication. "You have 24 hours to choose," Velthara said finally. "After that, the choice will be made for you." The screens went dark, leaving the humans alone with the most important decision in their species' history. President Vasquez looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. She saw fear, but she also saw determination. "Well," she said, "I guess we know what we're really made of now." Outside, the alien ships in Earth's orbit began to move into new positions. The moment of truth was coming. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called for the first time in 300 years. In the massive chamber that floated in the space between stars, representatives from 47 species gathered to discuss the human problem. Supreme Counselor Zethkar of the Zilani stood at the center of the assembly. Around him, beings of incredible power and ancient wisdom waited to hear how humanity had responded to their ultimatum. The humans have refused all three options, Zethkar announced. President Vasquez sent a single message: humanity chooses freedom. A ripple of concern passed through the gathered aliens. Many had expected this outcome, but hearing it confirmed made the situation real. Then we proceed with containment protocols, said High Builder Korvash. We have prepared isolation barriers around all human systems. Their ships will not be able to leave their current territory. The barriers are already in place, confirmed Energy Master Velthera. However, there are complications. Supreme Counselor Zethkar activated a holographic display showing the human colonies. Show them. The display revealed something that made even the ancient species pause. On every human world, people were not hiding or panicking as expected. Instead, they were working with desperate energy, building new technologies and sharing information at an unprecedented rate. In the 72 hours since we revealed ourselves, Velthara reported, human innovation has accelerated beyond all previous measurements. They are developing new weapons, new shields, new propulsion systems. That should not be possible, said the representative of the Kuhai, a species known for their tactical analysis. Humans lack the technological base for such rapid advancement. That is where the complications begin, Zethkar said grimly. The humans are not alone in their innovation. The display changed to show ships approaching human space from dozens of different directions. The ships belonged to many species, but they were not official government vessels. Korthak engineers who worked with humans are disobeying direct orders to return home, High Builder Korvash reported with obvious frustration. They are bringing advanced technology to help the humans. Zilani philosophers who studied human ethics are doing the same, Zethkar added. They claim that our treatment of humanity violates principles of justice they learned from human teachers. Most disturbing of all, Velthera said, 17 individual Etherians have left our collective to join the humans. They say that human determination has shown them new possibilities for existence. The chamber filled with shocked silence. Etherians never left their collective. Their species had been unified for millions of years. This is exactly what we feared, said the ancient representative of the Vorth species. The human influence spreads like a virus. It makes other species question everything. It gets worse, Zethkar continued. On 12 different worlds, species that had been peaceful for centuries are now demanding explanations about the Shepherd Protocol. They want to know what other young species we have manipulated. The Denari have withdrawn from 3 joint projects, claiming they need to reevaluate their independence, High Builder Korvash reported. The Frali have begun developing weapons for the first time in 500 years. Even the Moss people are asking questions about galactic authority structures. The Galactic Council was facing its worst nightmare. The careful balance they had maintained for millennia was falling apart because of one troublesome species. We could end this quickly, suggested the Vorth representative. One coordinated strike could destroy all human worlds simultaneously. The disruption would stop, and prove to 47 species that we destroy anyone who questions our authority? Velthara asked. That would cause more problems than it solved. Besides, added a new voice, it would not work. The council turned to see who had spoken. It was Healer Korthdel of the Korthak, but this individual was not supposed to be at the council session. Healer Korthdel, High Builder Korvash said with obvious anger, you are not invited to this gathering. I came to deliver a message from the Korthak who are helping humanity, Korthdel replied calmly, and from the Zilani philosophers and from the Etherian individuals who have chosen freedom over collective conformity. What message? Supreme Counselor Zethkar asked. Korthdel activated a personal communicator, and the chamber filled with voices from dozens of species. We are Korthak Engineer Vorthanal, serving with the human colony on New Geneva. Working with humans, I have discovered engineering principles that my people declared impossible. I will not abandon these discoveries. I am Zilani philosopher Kethmar. Human ethical systems have shown me that authority must be earned through wisdom and justice. not maintained through deception and force. I stand with humanity. I am Etherian individual Yelveth. Humans have taught me that existence can be chosen rather than simply accepted. I choose to exist as myself, not as part of a collective that lives in fear. The voices continued for several minutes. Representatives from dozens of species spoke about how interaction with humans had changed their understanding of themselves and their potential. When the voices finally stopped, the council chamber was completely silent. "You see the problem," Korthdale said. "Destroying humanity would not stop what they have started. It would only prove that our authority is based on force rather than wisdom. What do you suggest?" asked the Vorth representative. Before Korthdale could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The council's sensors had detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout human space. "Report," Zethkar demanded. The tactical display showed something that shocked even the most experienced council members. Human ships were appearing all over their territory, but these ships were unlike anything humanity had ever built before. "How is this possible?" High Builder Korvash asked. "Our barriers should prevent any ship movement." "The ships are not using conventional propulsion," the tactical officer reported. "They appear to be using dimensional folding technology combined with quantum entanglement drives. Those are theoretical technologies that no species has successfully developed," the Vorth representative protested. "Except," Korthdale said with something that might have been pride, "humans working together with Korthak engineers, guided by Zalani philosophical frameworks, and powered by Etherian energy manipulation." The truth hit the council like a physical blow. Alone, each species had limitations, but humans had done something unthinkable. They had found ways to combine the strengths of different species to overcome those limitations. "The barriers cannot hold these ships," the tactical officer reported. "They are simply stepping around them through alternate dimensions." "How many ships?" Zethkar asked. "Thousands, and more appearing every minute." Supreme Counselor Zethkar looked around the chamber at the faces of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. For the first time in his long life, he saw uncertainty in their expressions. "What are the humans doing?" he asked. The answer came from the humans themselves. President Vasquez's voice filled the chamber as her image appeared on the main display. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said. "We received your ultimatum and we have an answer." "You have no right to address this council," the Vorth representative said angrily. "We have every right," President Vasquez replied calmly. "Because we are no longer alone. Citizens of 47 species have chosen to stand with humanity. Not because we forced them, but because we offered them something you never did." "Which is?" Zethkar asked. "The chance to grow beyond what they thought possible." The display changed to show the combined fleet surrounding the council chamber. Ships of dozens of different designs and technologies worked together in perfect harmony. "You were right about one thing," President Vasquez continued. "Humans do cause change. But change is not something to fear. Change is what makes life worth living. Your fleet cannot match our combined power," the Vorth representative threatened. "You're right," President Vasquez admitted. "But our fleet doesn't need to match your power. It just needs to prove that your power is not absolute." The display showed human ships approaching critical installations throughout galactic space. They were not attacking, but their presence sent a clear message. The galaxy's most protected secrets were no longer safe. "You have a choice to make," President Vasquez said. "You can try to maintain control through force and fear, or you can join us in building something better." "And if we choose force?" Zethkar asked. "Then you will discover what happens when 47 species stop accepting limitations and start reaching for possibilities." The communication ended, leaving the Galactic Council facing the most important decision in their long history. For the first time in millennia, the outcome was not certain. 1 year later, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery, humanity's first starship built with full galactic technology. Through the transparent aluminum viewing ports, she could see something that would have been impossible just 12 months ago. The ship was approaching the Galactic Council station, but this time, humanity had been invited as equals. Ships from dozens of species flew alongside the Discovery, no longer hiding their true capabilities. The Korthak vessels flowed like liquid metal, reshaping themselves for optimal efficiency. Zilani warships moved with the deadly grace of apex predators, finally free to show their true nature. Etherian energy beings danced between dimensions. Their power creating light shows that painted the stars in new colors. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a greeting from the station." "It's Supreme Counselor Zethkar," Sarah smiled. The relationship between humans and the former galactic leadership had not been easy, but it had been honest for the first time in 2 centuries. Put him through. The screen filled with the image of the Zilani leader. Gone was the pretense of peaceful philosophy. Zethkar appeared in his true form, a being of incredible intelligence and predatory grace, but one who had learned to respect rather than fear change. "Captain Chen," he said, "welcome to the new Galactic Assembly. Your species has much to be proud of." "Thank you, Supreme Counselor. Though I understand the title has changed?" Zethkar's expression showed something that might have been amusement. "Indeed. I am now simply Counselor Zethkar, elected representative of the Zilani Dominion. The age of supreme authority ended when humans taught us that leadership must be earned, not imposed." The Discovery docked with the station, and Sarah made her way to the main assembly hall. What she found there would have amazed anyone from the old era. The chamber was filled with beings showing their true nature. Korthak engineers worked at consoles that bent space and time, their 6 arms moving in perfect coordination as they designed technologies that had been theoretical just months ago. Zilani philosophers debated with the intellectual intensity of creatures whose brains operated on levels that most species considered impossible. Etherians existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, sharing perspectives that transformed understanding of reality itself. And everywhere, humans worked alongside them as partners rather than subjects. Dr. James Okafor approached Sarah with a tablet full of data. "The results from the latest cooperation projects are incredible," he said. "The joint human Korthak engineering team just developed a propulsion system that can cross the galaxy in days instead of years. The Human Zilani Philosophy Group has created new ethical frameworks that are being adopted by 17 species, and the human Etherian research into consciousness has opened up forms of existence we never imagined." "How are the other species adapting?" Sarah asked. "Better than expected," James replied, "once they stopped pretending to be limited by ancient restrictions. Most species discovered capabilities they had forgotten they possessed. The Denari have developed art forms that exist in 12 dimensions. The Moss people have learned to communicate across galactic distances through quantum entanglement of their root systems." Sarah nodded. The past year had proven that the Galactic Council's greatest fear had also been their greatest limitation. By trying to maintain static order, they had prevented everyone from reaching their full potential. "Captain Chen," came a familiar voice. Sarah turned to see President Vasquez approaching with several alien dignitaries. "Madam President?" Sarah said, surprised. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I'm no longer president," Vasquez replied with a smile. "I'm now the human representative to the Galactic Assembly. Earth decided they needed someone with experience in interspecies diplomacy." One of the beings with her stepped forward. Sarah recognized High Builder Korvash, though like Zethkar, he had dropped the supreme authority implied by his old title. "Captain Chen," Korvash said, "I wanted to personally thank you. Your discovery of our deception began the changes that freed all of us from the limitations we had imposed on ourselves. We owe you an apology as well," added Energy Master Velthara, her Etherian form shimmering with colors of remorse. "We told ourselves we were protecting younger species, but we were really protecting ourselves from change." Before Sarah could reply, alarms began sounding throughout the station. But these were not warning alarms. They were announcement signals. "All beings report to the main assembly chamber," came the station-wide announcement. Historic moment in progress. Sarah and the others made their way to the chamber, which was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. At the center of the room stood a figure that Sarah had never seen before. The being was tall and ancient-looking, with features that seemed to shift between different species characteristics. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of eons. "I am Observer Talmesh of the Predecessor Collective," it said. "We are the species that established the Shepherd Protocol 10 million years ago." A shocked silence filled the chamber. The predecessors were legends, beings so ancient and powerful that most species considered them myths. "We have watched the recent changes with great interest," Talmesh continued. For 10 million years, we guided galactic development through careful control and limitation. We believed that stability required restriction. The ancient being paused, and something that might have been wonder entered its voice. But in 1 year, working together without our restrictions, the species of this galaxy have achieved more growth and discovery than occurred in the previous million years of managed development. Sarah felt her heart racing. The predecessors had been the ultimate authority behind everything. "We came here to congratulate you," Talmesh said, looking directly at the human section, "and to apologize. The humans were right. Change is not something to fear. Change is how life grows beyond its limitations." The being activated a device that filled the chamber with holographic images showing the galaxy as it had been and as it was becoming. Under the Shepherd Protocol, each species was maintained in balance, prevented from exceeding certain parameters. Growth was slow, careful, controlled, safe. The images shifted to show the past year of unprecedented cooperation and development. But growth without risk is not growth at all. It is merely existence. The humans showed us that true life requires the courage to reach beyond what you believe is possible. Sarah watched as the images showed species after species, breaking through barriers they had accepted for millennia. The Vorth, who had been the most resistant to change, were now developing technologies that created new forms of matter. The ancient Kuhai had discovered mathematical principles that allowed them to predict and influence quantum events across vast distances. Therefore, Talmesh announced, the predecessor collective formally dissolves the Shepherd Protocol and all associated restrictions. The galaxy is free to grow without limits. The chamber erupted in sounds from hundreds of different species expressing joy, amazement, and determination. As the celebration continued around her, Sarah found herself thinking about how much had changed since that day in the ventilation shaft on Mars. Humanity had gone from being secret test subjects to being the catalyst for galactic transformation. "What are you thinking about?" James asked, joining her at the viewing port. "I'm thinking about what happens next," Sarah replied. "We've broken all the old limitations, but that means we're entering completely unknown territory." "Worried?" he asked. Sarah looked out at the ships of dozens of species working together to build something unprecedented in galactic history. She saw Korthak engineers teaching humans how to manipulate dimensional boundaries. She saw Zelani philosophers learning human concepts of individual rights and applying them to create new forms of government. She saw Etherians and humans working together to explore forms of consciousness that transcended the boundaries between different types of existence. "No," she said finally. "For the first time in my life, I'm not worried about the future. I'm excited about it." In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed in ways that no one had imagined possible. New technologies emerged from unprecedented cooperation between species. New forms of art and music developed from the fusion of different creative traditions. New philosophical and ethical systems arose from the combination of different ways of understanding existence. And at the center of it all were humans. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they had given the galaxy something it had forgotten it needed: the courage to change. The moment the galaxy stopped concealing their true nature had become the moment when everyone discovered that their true nature was far greater than they had ever dared to believe. The universe had just gotten much more interesting, and humanity couldn't wait to see what happened next.